There are moments when thousands of people witness the same impossible thing, when police officers, pilots, doctors, and teachers all describe identical details of something that shouldn't exist. When video cameras capture what the military says isn't there, the night of the 13th of March, 1997, was one of those moments. What happened over Arizona that evening remains one of the most documented UFO events in modern history. It's also one of the most troubling. The American Southwest has always been a place where the ordinary world seems different. Desert highways stretch toward horizons that shimmer in the heat. Military bases conduct secret tests behind tall fences, topped with razor wire. Ancient rock drawings mark sacred sites where native peoples tracked stars across clear skies. This is a landscape shaped by secrets. Some are natural, others are man-made. The testing grounds of Area 51 sit just a few hundred miles north of Phoenix. Luke Air Force Base spreads across thousands of acres west of the city. Davis-Monthan Air Force Base houses the largest aircraft graveyard in the world near Tucson. The Barry Goldwater Range provides military training space across millions of desert acres. If something unusual was going to appear in American skies, this would be the place. The desert has always hidden things. Sometimes those things refuse to stay hidden. Phoenix, in 1997, was growing fast, really fast. The metro area had swelled to nearly 3 million residents. New neighborhoods pushed deeper into the desert each month. Strip malls and gas stations appeared where cactus forests once stood. The city lights created an orange glow visible from space. Yet the surrounding wilderness remained vast and mostly empty. You could drive 20 minutes from downtown and find yourself completely alone under stars, so bright they cast shadows. March had brought perfect weather to the Valley of the Sunday. Temperatures stayed in the comfortable 70s during the day. Cool nights meant people kept their windows open. Clear skies drew families outdoors for evening barbecues. Kids played basketball in driveways until their parents called them in. Thursday, the 13th of March, seemed completely normal as the sun began to set. Rush hour traffic crawled along Interstate 10. Families prepared dinner. Local news stations led with stories about city council elections and spring training baseball. The Phoenix Suns were having a decent season. Life was ordinary, then it wasn't. The first reports came from Henderson, Nevada, around 7:55 p.m. A man named Russell Palmer was in his backyard when he noticed lights in the southwestern sky, not ordinary lights. These moved in perfect formation. They kept exact distances from each other as they traveled southeast. Palmer had spent 30 years in the Air Force. He knew aircraft patterns, he knew military formations. These lights followed none of those patterns. Palmer called his wife Patricia outside. She brought binoculars from the house. Through the lenses, they could make out a dark shape connecting the lights. Something massive blocked the stars as it passed. Patricia grabbed their neighbor, Tom Morrison, who worked as an engineer at McCarran Airport. Morrison took one look and said he'd never seen anything like it. The three stood in Palmer's backyard, watching this thing move silently across the Nevada sky. Former police officer William Greer was driving north on Highway 95 near Kingman, Arizona, when he saw them next. The time was 8:17 p.m. Greer pulled his truck to the shoulder and got out. Lights arranged in a perfect V formation passed directly overhead. He later described the craft as being at least a mile wide, maybe wider. The bottom seemed to ripple, like looking at something through water. No sound came from it, no engine noise, no sonic boom despite its apparent size. Nothing. Greer had worked as a cop for 15 years. He'd investigated hundreds of reports. He knew how memory could play tricks. He knew how witnesses could exaggerate. But this was different. This was real and solid. He could see the structure between the lights. Metal or something that looked like metal. Panels and sections that reminded him of a ship's hull. But ships don't fly. And planes don't move this slowly without falling from the sky. The lights continued southeast toward Phoenix. By 8:30 p.m., Emergency dispatch centers from Prescott to Tucson were getting flooded with calls. People were scared. People were amazed. People wanted answers. The descriptions stayed remarkably consistent. Multiple lights in V formation, complete silence, massive size. Some callers were crying, others were laughing in disbelief. All of them were seeing the same thing. Tim and Dorothy Lay were among the first Phoenix residents to spot it. They had just finished dinner at their home in North Phoenix. Their 12-year-old son Matt ran inside, shouting about strange lights. The family gathered in their backyard. Tim, who worked as a veterinarian, grabbed his video camera from the kitchen counter. He'd bought it just months earlier for family vacations. He never imagined he'd use it for something like this. The footage Tim Lay captured that night would become famous. It shows 5 distinct lights holding formation as they drift across the sky. The lights pulse slightly. They grow brighter and dimmer in rhythm. Stars are visible in the frame. These reference points allowed experts to later estimate size and altitude. Dorothy can be heard on the recording, asking what they're looking at. Tim doesn't answer. He's too focused on keeping the camera steady. Their son Matt whispers that it's beautiful. Their younger daughter Emma asks if it's from space. Nobody had answers, only questions. So many questions. Mike Fortson was in his Chandler backyard with his wife Linda and their 3 kids. The lights passed directly overhead at approximately 8:30 p.m. Fortson worked as an electrical engineer for Motorola. He immediately recognized this wasn't normal aircraft. The formation stretched from horizon to horizon. He could see structure between the lights. A solid surface blocked out stars. It was like watching a floating city pass over their home. Linda grabbed their telescope from the garage. Through it, she could see what appeared to be panels on the craft's underside. Seams and joints like you'd see on a submarine or spacecraft. Their children stood frozen in the yard. 8-year-old Jessica started crying. 10-year-old Brian asked if they should go inside. 13-year-old Kevin wanted to get his friends, but nobody moved. They just stood there, necks craned upward, watching this impossible thing drift over their neighborhood. Fortson later did the math. Based on how long it took to pass overhead and its apparent altitude, he calculated its size. His conservative estimate put it at over a mile in length. That's 18 football fields long. Nothing that big should be able to fly. Nothing that big should be silent. But there it was, defying everything he knew about physics and engineering. Frances Barwood served on the Phoenix City Council. She was at home when her phone started ringing. Constituents were calling to report something strange in the sky. Barwood stepped onto her patio and saw them herself. 5 lights moving together like they were attached to something. She called the mayor's office. They hadn't received any reports. That seemed impossible, given what she was seeing. She called Luke Air Force Base. They claimed nothing unusual was happening. She called Sky Harbor International Airport. Air traffic control said their radar wasn't tracking anything unusual, but Barwood could see it with her own eyes. She watched these lights move across Phoenix for several minutes. Later, she would become one of the only public officials to demand real answers about that night. Her calls for investigation would largely go ignored. James Miller, a cement truck driver, was heading home from work when he saw cars pulling over on Interstate 17. People were getting out and pointing at the sky. Miller stopped his truck and climbed out. Above him, something massive moved through the air. He described it as looking like a giant boomerang made of dark metal. Lights marked its edges. The center was solid and blocked out stars. Miller had grown up around Litchfield Park, where Luke Air Force Base tested aircraft. He'd seen every type of military plane and helicopter. This wasn't any of them. It moved too slowly. It was too quiet. And it was impossibly large. He watched it for about 5 minutes before it disappeared over South Mountain. When he got home, his wife didn't believe him until she saw the news reports. Dr. Bradley Evans taught astronomy at Arizona State University. A local news station contacted him for comment about the sightings. Evans hadn't seen the lights himself. He suggested witnesses might be seeing aircraft and atmospheric effects. Then, his own colleagues started calling. Professor Maria Rodriguez had seen them from the university parking lot. Graduate student James Park had photographed them through the department's telescope. The images showed structured objects, not points of light. Evans found himself unable to explain what trained observers had documented. These were people who knew the night sky. They knew satellites and planets and aircraft. What they photographed didn't match any of those things. Evans would later admit that the Phoenix lights challenged his understanding of what was possible. Truck driver Robert Martinez was making a delivery in Prescott Valley around 8:00 p.m. He watched the V formation pass overhead while stopped at a red light. He described feeling strange, like static electricity filled the air. His skin tingled. The hair on his arms stood up. His radio, tuned to a country station, filled with static, then went silent. The lights passed over, and everything returned to normal. The radio came back. The tingling stopped, but the memory remained vivid. Martinez's experience matched reports from others. Many witnesses described physical sensations, buzzing in their ears, pressure in their chest, a feeling of being watched or scanned. Some reported that time seemed to slow down. What felt like a few seconds of observation turned out to be many minutes. Others said their watches stopped working. Digital clocks in cars showed the wrong time afterward. By 8:45 p.m., the Phoenix Police Department was overwhelmed. Every phone line was busy. Officer Stephen Curtis was sent to South Mountain Park to investigate. From that elevated position, he had a clear view across the valley. Curtis watched as the lights approached from the northwest. Through his binoculars, he could make out a triangular shape. The craft moved slowly, maybe 30 miles per hour, too slow for regular aircraft to stay airborne. Yet, it didn't fall. It glided across the valley like a boat on calm water. Curtis radioed dispatch to report what he was seeing. The dispatcher asked him to repeat his message, then asked again. Curtis later said he could hear the disbelief in her voice. But other officers were calling in similar reports. Patrol cars across the city had pulled over to watch. Some officers took photographs. Others just stood beside their vehicles, staring up in amazement. Local news stations interrupted regular programming. Channel 12 showed live footage from their tower cameras. The images were blurry, but showed lights moving across the valley. Channel 3 sent reporters to interview witnesses. People were excited, scared, confused. Channel 10 meteorologist Dave Walker tried to explain the lights as a weather event, but even he admitted on air that he had no real explanation. Nothing about the weather that night could account for what people were seeing. The station's phone lines jammed with callers. Many described not just lights, but a massive craft. Some said it was triangular. Others described a V shape. A few insisted it looked more like a boomerang. The descriptions varied slightly, but everyone agreed on key points. It was huge. It was silent. It was unlike anything they'd ever seen. Mitch Stanley owned a large telescope and often watched the night sky from his backyard. When the lights appeared, he quickly focused his equipment on them. Through the eyepiece, he could see each light wasn't single, but multiple smaller lights arranged in clusters. More interesting was what surrounded them, a dark mass that looked solid and manufactured. Stanley's wife, Carol, looked through the telescope and gasped. She could see what appeared to be a grid pattern on the object's surface, like windows or panels on a building, but buildings don't fly. Carol called her sister Nancy, who lived in Tempe. Nancy went outside and saw the lights too. She described them to Carol over the phone. They were seeing the same thing from different parts of the valley. This wasn't a localized illusion or trick of perspective. Something real was moving across Phoenix. Thousands of people were witnessing it simultaneously. Around 9:00 p.m., a second wave of sightings began. These lights appeared different from the earlier formation. They hovered in a row south of the city. They stayed visible for several minutes before disappearing one by one. Thousands witnessed this second event. Many assumed it connected to the earlier sighting. The military would later claim these were flares dropped during a training exercise. But witnesses noted problems with this explanation. The lights didn't drift with the wind. Weather data showed a 5-knot wind at altitude that night. Flares should have drifted noticeably. These lights stayed in perfect position. They didn't descend as flares should. They maintained consistent brightness until suddenly vanishing. They disappeared in sequence from left to right, not randomly as individual flares would. John Kaiser flew commercial airlines for America West. He was off duty at his Ahwatukee home when he saw the second set of lights. Kaiser had been a Navy pilot. He knew military flares. These didn't behave like flares. They stayed stationary despite the documented wind. They kept exact spacing as if connected by something solid. Most puzzling, they vanished in order, not randomly. Kaiser called colleagues at Sky Harbor Airport. They confirmed no military exercises had been logged for that airspace. The area where the lights appeared was restricted. Civilian aircraft couldn't fly there without permission. Military aircraft needed to file flight plans. Nothing had been filed. No exercises were scheduled. Yet there the lights were, hovering in restricted airspace, witnessed by thousands. Dr. Lynn Kitay lived in a mountainside home with panoramic views of Phoenix. She had been photographing unusual lights over the city for months before the 13th of March. That night, she captured both events on film. Her photographs show clear, structured objects. In one image, the lights appear attached to something solid that reflects the city lights below. The object has depth and dimension. It's not just lights in the sky. Kitay worked as a physician at Phoenix General Hospital. Her medical training had taught her to observe carefully, to document everything, to look for patterns and connections. Her evidence would become crucial in later investigations. She had photographs from before the 13th of March showing similar lights. She had photographs from that night showing both events. She had photographs from after showing continued activity. Something was happening over Phoenix. The 13th of March was just the most visible example. Around 10:00 p.m., calls came in from Tucson. The lights had traveled over 100 miles southeast. Border Patrol agents near Mexico reported seeing them heading south. The phenomenon had crossed 300 miles of American airspace. No jets were scrambled to investigate. No official response was launched. The silence from authorities was strange and troubling. Air Force bases gave conflicting stories. Luke Air Force Base first denied any knowledge. Then they suggested witnesses saw aircraft from Operation Snowbird, a pilot training program. When pressed for details about flight paths and aircraft types, they stopped responding to media questions. Davis-Monthan Air Force Base claimed no involvement. The North American Aerospace Defense Command, NORAD, said nothing appeared on their radar systems. Yet thousands of witnesses, including military personnel and pilots, had seen something extraordinary. Many had photographed and filmed it. The evidence was overwhelming. Something had crossed Arizona that night, something huge and silent and unexplained. The military's changing stories only made people more suspicious. What were they hiding? What did they know? Governor Fife Symington held a press conference several days later. He promised a full investigation into the Phoenix lights. Then, in what many saw as mockery, he brought out his chief of staff dressed in an alien costume. The governor joked about the hysteria. He dismissed the sightings as overreaction. The stunt angered witnesses who felt their experiences were being ridiculed. They had seen something real, something that defied explanation, and their governor was making jokes. Years later, Symington would admit the truth. He had also seen the lights. He described a massive, delta-shaped craft, unlike anything in military inventory. He said he'd made light of the situation to prevent panic. He didn't want people to be afraid, but his jokes had the opposite effect. They made people feel dismissed and ignored. They made people distrust official statements even more. The Phoenix lights became a phenomenon that refused to fade away. Television documentaries examined the evidence. Researchers interviewed hundreds of witnesses. The stories remained consistent. Something massive and silent had crossed Arizona. The military's flare explanation satisfied some people, but it raised more questions for others. Why drop flares over a populated area? Why the initial denials? Why did radar systems not track the earlier V formation? Dr. Bruce Maccabee worked as an optical physicist. He analyzed the various videos and photographs. His calculations suggested the V formation craft flew at about 6,000 feet altitude. It moved at 30 miles per hour. Based on angular measurements, he estimated its size at over a mile wide. Maccabee noted that no known aircraft could maintain such slow speed at that altitude without stalling. The power required to keep such a massive object airborne would be enormous. Yet witnesses reported complete silence. The object's flight path raised questions. It seemed to follow Interstate 17 from Nevada through Arizona. Was this coincidence or intentional? Some researchers noted the path crossed over multiple military installations. The Palo Verde nuclear generating station sat along the route. It's the largest nuclear plant in the United States. Several military bases and weapons testing ranges also lay beneath the flight path. Witness testimonies revealed interesting patterns. Many reported feeling calm or peaceful when viewing the craft. Some described telepathic impressions, feelings of communication without words. Others experienced missing time. What felt like minutes of observation had actually been an hour or more. These psychological effects appeared across diverse witnesses. People with no connection to each other reported similar experiences. Native American perspectives added another layer to the mystery. The Tohono O'odham Nation's lands lie south of Phoenix. They have oral traditions about sky visitors going back generations. Tribal elder Samuel Joaquin spoke of lights appearing over sacred sites. He wasn't surprised by the Phoenix lights. His grandfather had told him such things would return. They would come when the world needed reminding of mysteries beyond human understanding. Other tribal members kept their knowledge private. They considered it sacred information not meant for outsiders. But privately, many acknowledged that the 13th of March was not unique. Similar events had occurred before. They would occur again. The desert had always been a place where the ordinary world touched something else, something older and stranger than most people imagined. Commercial airline pilots began sharing their experiences. Captain Roger Hamilton revealed he'd seen the V formation while flying America West Flight 564. He and his co-pilot watched it pass beneath their aircraft. They didn't report it to air traffic control. They feared ridicule or career damage. Other pilots came forward with similar stories. Many had seen unusual things over Arizona but kept quiet to protect their jobs. Captain Sarah Morgan flew for Southwest Airlines. She saw the lights while deadheading as a passenger on a Phoenix-bound flight. From her window seat, she watched the formation move across the desert. She estimated its speed and altitude using her pilot training. Her calculations matched those of ground witnesses. Whatever it was moved too slowly for conventional aircraft. It was too large for any known vehicle, and it was completely silent even from relatively close range. The media coverage revealed interesting patterns. Initial reports treated the event seriously, straightforward witness interviews, expert analysis, factual reporting. As days passed, the tone shifted. Stories became skeptical and humorous. Late-night comedians made jokes. News anchors smirked through updates. The transformation from news event to cultural punchline happened quickly. Some researchers saw this as intentional, a way to minimize public concern about unexplained aircraft over American cities. Television producer Jennifer Stein spent years investigating the Phoenix lights. She interviewed over 100 witnesses. She collected photographs and videos. She consulted experts in aviation, physics, and optics. Her documentary revealed new details about that night. Multiple witnesses reported seeing smaller objects leave and return to the larger craft. Some saw beams of light scanning the ground. Others noticed the craft seemed to change shape slightly as it moved. Military personnel occasionally broke their silence. An unnamed Luke Air Force Base radar operator told a researcher something was tracked that night, something moving slowly at high altitude, something that didn't respond to radio contact. The operator claimed supervisors ordered the data deleted. Staff had to sign additional non-disclosure agreements. These claims remain unverified but persistent. Multiple sources tell similar stories about deleted data and enforced silence. Scientific attempts to recreate the phenomenon failed. The Discovery Channel arranged for aircraft to fly in formation while dropping flares. They tried to duplicate what witnesses described. The result looked nothing like the original videos. The flares drifted and flickered. The aircraft engines were clearly audible. The formation couldn't maintain precise spacing. If the Phoenix lights were conventional aircraft and flares, nobody has successfully demonstrated how. The economic impact surprised everyone. Phoenix became a destination for UFO tourism. Hotels reported increased bookings around the 13th of March each year. Gift shops sold Phoenix Lights merchandise. T-shirts, posters, coffee mugs. Tour companies offered sky-watching expeditions. The phenomenon that officials tried to dismiss became part of the city's identity. Street art depicting triangular craft appeared on buildings. Local bands wrote songs about that night. 27 years have passed since the 13th of March, 1997. New witnesses still come forward. They share stories they were afraid to tell at the time. Military personnel reach retirement and feel free to speak. Classified documents reach declassification dates. Most reveal nothing substantial, but the accumulation of testimony continues to grow. The Phoenix Lights remain one of the most documented UFO events in history, yet they're no closer to explanation. Current Phoenix residents have varied relationships with the phenomenon. Some embrace it as part of local history. Others dismiss it as mass hysteria. Many fall somewhere between. They acknowledge something unusual happened, while remaining skeptical of alien explanations. The lights have become both historical fact and modern mythology. They exist in that uncertain space between the documented and the mysterious. Former Governor Symington now advocates for serious investigation. He regrets his initial dismissive response. He believes the public deserves transparency about what happened. He's called for congressional hearings and military disclosure. His transformation from skeptic to advocate reflects a broader shift. More officials now acknowledge that unexplained aerial phenomena deserve serious study. The children who witnessed the lights are now adults. Many remain convinced they saw something extraordinary. Matt Lay, who was 12 when his father filmed the lights, became an aerospace engineer. He spent years trying to understand what his family witnessed. Emma Lay, who asked if they were from space, became a science teacher. She tells her students about that night. She encourages them to question and investigate. Their lives were shaped by those few minutes of impossible observation. Recent Pentagon revelations have renewed interest in the Phoenix Lights. Military admissions that unidentified aerial phenomena are real validate witnesses. People who faced decades of ridicule now feel vindicated. The Phoenix Lights are cited in congressional hearings. They're mentioned in military reports. They're examples of mass sightings that demand explanation. Dr. Kevin Randall, a UFO researcher and former Air Force intelligence officer, studied the Phoenix Lights extensively. He found the witness testimony remarkably consistent. People from different locations described the same details. The timing of sightings matched perfectly with the object's calculated speed. The photographs and videos supported witness accounts. Either thousands of people experienced the same detailed hallucination, or something real crossed Arizona that night. Peter Davenport runs the National UFO Reporting Center. He received over 700 reports about the Phoenix Lights. The calls started coming in while the event was still happening. Witnesses were excited, scared, amazed. Many called back multiple times with additional details. Davenport noted the quality of witnesses: doctors, lawyers, pilots, police officers. These weren't people prone to fantasy or misidentification. Some witnesses experienced lasting effects. Several reported increased interest in astronomy and aviation. Others described recurring dreams about the craft. A few claimed enhanced intuition after the sighting. While these reports venture into strange territory, the consistency across unconnected individuals raises questions. Did the phenomenon affect people in ways we don't understand? Local teacher Margaret Patterson saw the lights with her husband and teenage sons. The experience changed their family. They started attending UFO conferences. They met other witnesses. They found a community of people who'd shared their experience. Patterson said the lights made her realize how much we don't know about our world, how many mysteries remain unsolved, how important it is to keep an open mind. Retired engineer Thomas Garcia witnessed the lights from his Scottsdale home. He spent months analyzing videos and photographs. He applied his engineering knowledge to understand what he'd seen. His conclusion was that the object demonstrated technology beyond current human capability. The power requirements alone would be staggering. The silence suggested propulsion methods we haven't discovered. Gonzalez believed the Phoenix lights represented either secret military technology decades ahead of known science, or something not from Earth. But explanation remains elusive. The V formation that crossed Arizona defied conventional understanding. Too large for known aircraft, too slow to maintain flight, too silent for conventional propulsion. The thousands who saw it know something remarkable occurred. The videos and photographs provide evidence. The official explanations fail to address crucial details. Perhaps the most unsettling aspect isn't what was seen but what wasn't done. No military interception occurred. No official investigation happened at the time. No satisfactory explanation exists even now. If thousands of witnesses can observe something extraordinary over a major American city without proper response, what else passes through our skies unacknowledged? The desert has returned to its normal mysteries. Saguaro cacti stand like sentinels under star-filled skies. Coyotes call across empty valleys. Cities sprawl outward, their lights pushing back darkness. But those who were there on the 13th of March, 1997, still look up sometimes. They wonder if the lights will return. They wonder if next time we'll get answers. They wonder if we're ready for what those answers might reveal. What crossed Arizona that night remains unknown. Military craft, visitors from another world, something beyond current human understanding. The evidence exists in abundance. The explanations remain inadequate. The Phoenix lights endure as proof that our skies hold secrets, that thousands of people can witness the impossible, that sometimes the most troubling mysteries happen in plain sight. They're documented and filmed, yet forever unexplained. The story doesn't end with the 13th of March, 1997. Unusual lights continue to appear over Arizona. Witnesses still report strange craft. The military still offers questionable explanations. The desert keeps its secrets. And somewhere, perhaps, the truth about what visited Phoenix that night waits to be discovered. Until then, we have only questions. Questions about what we saw, questions about what it means, questions about what else might be out there, watching and waiting in the darkness above. If you witnessed something that night, or if you have your own unexplained sighting to share, we'd love to hear about it in the comments below. And if these mysteries from our skies keep you wondering what else might be out there, consider subscribing for more stories that challenge what we think we know about our world.